The two most important areas to get the attention of, like, if you want women to be with you and men to look at you and want to be you, you've got to have the optics of masculinity and strength sorted out, and you've got to have your money squared away, because men are success objects, right? Women are beauty objects, men are success objects. So we're very different. So one of the great lies that society tells us is that men and women are exactly the same. And that's like the furthest thing from the truth. We saw that loser, I can't remember his name. Lena something is a name that he adopted in his swimming career, but he was like rated like 400 against men when he was a male swimmer. And then he went into the women's category and he dominated and got all the medals, right? So men and women are not the same. We're very, very different. I think that the earlier a guy can understand and adopt that truth, and they focus on themselves, and they like, what is it? It's something like 43% of men in North America are considered obese. Like, all you have to do is not be fat. Like, start there. And then, if that's where you're at right now, then get a gym membership and work on, the optics of a V taper, because broad shoulders, wide shoulders, and a narrow waist, getting you the 1.62 golden ratio, which I talk about in my book as well, is what women prefer. Like, that's what they have historically selected mates on. And having money and resources is super important too, because look, I mean, if you're 20 and she's 19 or something like that, and you're dating in that rate, it doesn't matter if you have wealth, right? Like, it's not that significant. But as women get older and more mature, and they're looking to check out of the dating landscape and maybe have kids or settle down or whatever, they're looking for a guy that's competent in the sense that he can make it rain. Like, he's got access to financial resources, because women can't be working when they're taking care of a baby.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's never been easier to be separated fitness wise, like you said. Like, just get in the gym and don't be part of that 40% that is obese. And I would say today's world, it's never been easier to make you don't need to be you don't think you need to be a millionaire, but I mean, a six-figure income, I would say, is very easily attainable for every guy out there. Would you agree?
I tell guys, aim to be a millionaire by the time you're 30. If you don't hit 30, at least do it by 40. Like, it's incumbent on you, especially if you're in North America. And you'd be shocked at the amount of pushback that I get from that. Oh, Rich doesn't understand how the world works. He's disconnected. He inherited silver spoon, all this bullshit. And it's like, if that's your mindset, if that's what you think of yourself, then you're always going to be a loser, right? Winners never quit, quitters never win. And if you're seeing yourself from the get-go as somebody that can accomplish something, and I'm not going to use the word simple, but as reasonable as acquiring $1 million in net worth, I'm sorry, you're just not going to do great in life.
Rich, who were you growing up? Like, in high school? Like, if you and I were in high school, who was Rich?
I was a rocker. Long hair, listen to heavy metal, headbanger. Yeah, that was me, man.
Yeah. And this was 80s, 90s era?
Yeah, I was, I'm a product of the 70s. I was born in the 70s. So, I grew up in the 80s, 90s. Yeah.
Okay. When did your entrepreneurship bug hit? Is that something you knew back then, or did that come later on in life?
I think I always had, I had this nagging feeling, I had this little voice, this gut feeling that I wasn't cut out for the world the way that it's been sold to us, and they want us to mold into it, sort of thing. I was a C/D average student. I had a desk in the vice principal's office in 7th grade for a week. I can't remember why. The teacher just couldn't handle dealing with me for whatever reason. And I ended up sitting there and listening to him lecture me just about every day about how successful he was as a vice principal of a public school in grade 7, making $60,000 a year. And if I work hard and focus, that I can also have the same job that he has. And I just sat there thinking to myself, nodding my head, yeah, I want to be a loser like you, right? Like, I see guys out there driving Lamborghinis, wearing cool clothes and watches and traveling. And you're telling me that I should aspire to be a $60,000 a year vice principal. I'm not saying it's not a noble thing to be an educator, but I wanted to hold myself to higher standards. And, it turned out like the school system doesn't really teach boys to be men. It treats males like defective girls, basically. Girls do very well in the school system. Guys need hands-on, me to get out and do shit and test stuff out and test ourselves and fall down and scrape our knees. Like, this is generally how we learn. So I figured out by the time I hit my 20s, I'm like, none of this really makes sense. Like, all I'm doing is I'm coming in, I'm punching a clock, I'm making somebody else rich, I'm lining his pocket with gold. They treat me like shit. They pay me the bare minimum. When I ask for a raise, it's like kicking and screaming to try to get like a 3 or 4% raise on your salary. And it's like, none of this made sense to me. And I had the inkling younger. I mean, I started up a couple of businesses when I was younger. Like I used to detail cars for dealerships and for people, and do all kinds of these little like odd things from side from time to time, because my parents never gave me allowance or any kind of money. I always had to earn everything. My first car I bought when I was like 17. My first motorcycle, paid for myself when I was 18, cost me $5,500. I was one of the few kids at that age that was going out there and buying $5,000 motorcycles, which back then, inflation adjusted, was quite a bit of money. So, it just hit me at some point in my 20s, and I got a package, in my late 20s, and I went home and I thought to myself, do I just go and get another JOB, which really stands for just over broke? Like, it's an acronym in my mind, where they don't really pay you enough to escape anything. I mean, you don't really escape the rat race. My dad always called it a rat race. When he lived in Canada, he moved back and forth from Canada to England. And, it's like taking a frying pan to the forehead, and it just whacks you, and you're like, okay, this is the grim realization. Because I spent my 20s reading books and biographies about successful people. I read books about Richard Branson, Jeff Bezos, Donald Trump, like anybody that had acquired any kind of wealth, because I just knew success leaves clues. And if I study greatness, then there's got to be something there. And it just seemed obvious to me that entrepreneurship was the path. And it took me until about 29, 30 for me to dive into it. But it happened for me. And, I'm grateful that I got that package and went home, and they let me go. I learned from that they hire you because of your fit, because of your resume and your skills. Or sorry, they hire you because of your resume and your skills, but they fire you because of the fit within the organization. I didn't fit in because I didn't want to do what they told me to do.